Everyone this evening to Richmond Planning and Zoning meeting. Clerk, you call the roll, please.
Commissioner DeGrant,
Here.
Commissioner Francis.
Here.
Commissioner Short,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Perkins,
Here.
Commissioner Miles, Commissioner Estelle.
Here. If all the commissioners had a chance to read the minutes from June 18th, 2025 meeting, I'd like to get a motion on that, please.
I make a motion to approve the June 18th, 2025 meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Commissioner DeGrant,
Yes.
Commissioner Francis,
Yes.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Miles,
Yes.
Commissioner Estelle.
Yes. Next on the agenda is the preliminary plat for Woodgate subdivision. Is anyone here for that, Kevin? Next on the agenda is the preliminary plat for Woodgate subdivision. There's a representative here for that.
Yeah, I believe Miss Jenny Neal is here. Yes, we have someone.
Okay.
I'm Kendall Wise, I work for Vantage Engineering, so I did the preliminary plat that you're looking at. My name is Kendall Wise, I work for Vantage Engineering, and we did the preliminary, we prepared the preliminary plat. We do site design and land surveying. The project that you're looking at, I guess I'll just go through the general statistics of it all. The land, the area of the property, the farm itself is 207 acres. We're proposing 362 single-family lots. The lots we're proposing are no less than 50 feet wide. We're going to ask for a variance of the lot width, and I'll get into that in just a minute. The allowable density that we can develop this property at, which we found that it's zone R1B, and so that allows us to put lots in with a density of 4.6 dwelling units per acre. That's the maximum density that we're allowed to build and develop the property. Knowing that in trying to come up with an efficient way to develop the property, there is a lot of elevation change on the property, so we've looked at a way to make this a nice community, a place that will help preserve the openness that is there now, as well as create a lot of nice building spots for the people that'll be moving there. The density that we've ultimately come up with is 1.7 units per acre, so it's a tremendous reduction in the density that we're allowed to put on the property. And if you will, who's controlling this slideshow? Can we look at maybe an overall view of the farm? There's, I think, 12 sheets in all. We had to break it up into 12 sheets just so that you could see the amount of detail that's required on a preliminary plat. But this shows you, this sheet shows the areas that are not going to be developed. And we're calling these woodland preserve areas, and for the most part, they are the outer perimeter of the property. You've got one lot there that separates us from all the adjoining property by some width. In some cases, it's 50 feet. In some cases, it's much more than that. So all of that land would be open space, or possibly even put into a conservation easement. Those things still yet to be determined, but at a minimum, not developed. And that acreage, so the total site is 207 acres. The amount of area we're saying we're not going to use for development is 73 acres. 35% of the property is not going to be used for subdivision, other than utilities. Or, you know, obviously, we may have to run utility lines through there. In addition, addition to that open space, we have common areas that would be owned and maintained by the neighborhood association. And those common areas would be park-like areas that would be mowed and provide walking trails. And in one case, there's a pond on the property that would be preserved as a water feature. We'll have pavilions and actually places where people can drive into the park and park, along with all of the walking trails that connect to the street system. The area of the common area is 15 acres. It's more than 15 acres, providing 7.3% of the property. So 7.3% of the property, in addition to the 73 acres, that all total is all of the open space that we're not using for development. We're trying to reduce the footprint of development and help preserve the open spaces that so many of the neighbors have come to love, even though they don't own them. And we're asking for a variance so that we can reduce the footprint of the development area. So the variance we're asking for is to reduce the width of the lots at the street right-of-way from 60 feet to 50 feet. Currently, the minimum standard for R1B is a lot width of 60 feet wide at the street right-of-way. We're asking to reduce that 10 feet so that the lots are no less than 50 feet wide at the street right-of-way. By doing so, we can come up with the lot count that we proposed without having to infringe on those open spaces. Obviously, we can increase the footprint of the development area, but we don't want to. By reducing the lot width, increasing the quantity of units, the numbers can work with the footprint for development that we have. Obviously, we can do more mass excavation. The footprint of the development area could get bigger. It can be done, come up with the same number of lots that are 60 feet wide. We'd rather keep the footprint as small as possible, not infringe upon neighbors any more than we have to. I think, other than the reduction of the lot width from 60 feet to 50 feet, and that's the only change or the only variance we're asking for, the area of the lots still meets the R1B lot area requirement. So acreage-wise, each lot would still be as large as it would be based on the minimum standard for R1B. So we're asking for only the width of the lot. It reduces the length of the streets we have to build. It reduces the amount of infrastructure that has to be maintained in the future. All in all, it's a win-win for the developer and for the city who own and maintain roads.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, how many phases did you say again that were going to be?
There are 10 sheets that show 10 phases.
10 phases, okay.
Yes.
And how many houses per phase?
Just because they're on a sheet by themselves, I had to break it up into 10 sheets, 10 sections.
Well, how many houses overall?
How many houses overall? It was 362, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's roughly, I'll just go to the first phase, for example. 27 lots, 27 residential lots in phase 1, 34 residential lots in phase 2, and so on. But again, just because we have them on separate sheets, once we get into the construction phase, I wouldn't say that just because it's called section 1 on this preliminary plat, I wouldn't say that that's going to be the first group of lots built on or created. It could be more, but I had to break it up in some way to be able to present it to you with the amount of detail that's required for a preliminary plat.
Now, one of the problems we had with this before was they were going to redo the road, remember? Well, maybe not. They were going to redo the road, and the government, or Kentucky, was supposed to give money to have that done. Have they done that?
Which roadway are you referring to?
The one there in front of Richmond Road and through that way? Richard Center? Barnes Mill?
Barnes Mill.
But he's got,
That's currently in design, and that includes turn lanes on the off-ramps, north and southbound off I-75, and then some widening of Barnes Mill from the interstate to Goggins with a a turnabout at Goggins and Barnes Mill, a roundabout right there. That is in design at this time with the State Transportation Cabinet.
But you and I both know that sometimes the money doesn't come right away. It's delayed quite a while sometimes. And that's one of the things that bothered us last time, was that once they start building, all these cars are going to be added and we're not going to have the road fixed the way we should.
Yeah, I've been assured that this has been moved to the top of the list for this area. Now, one thing we'll do is we'll lobby them very hard with our local legislators. When they come in session, we'll make sure that it's in the plan. It is in the plan now and it's under design, but like you said, it can get moved around. But I'm pretty sure that this will be a priority project with all the development.
I think right now, the only thing that we are concerned is with this preliminary plot for it right now to be developed. I'm pretty sure that it's all not going to be developed at one time. And like I say, you don't know, but right now we're just concentrating on this preliminary plot right now, but being developed on there.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, one of the things that Kendall and I will work together on, and the owners, is deciding those phases. So depending on how it goes tonight here, staff approval should be considered so that we can doctor up that preliminary plat, and then we would have phasing so that we would know what to expect would come first and second and so forth. But like Kendall's saying, to get the amount of detail on the paper for everyone to see, it's took 10 sections to get that across. That doesn't mean that section 1 is phase 1. It may incorporate 10 lots, it may incorporate 45, but we can work through that by showing the phasing on the preliminary for revisions. But we can look at that and have that done.
Is there any plan for when the road construction, if it's delayed, will we not approve more phases? Will we approve more phases or not?
Well, under a preliminary, we're looking at the entire thing. So if we approve a preliminary plat tonight, then those phases will be defined by their order. And if you approve the entire preliminary tonight, then it could stair step. And not knowing the stages of the state construction, I wouldn't be able to answer that.
Okay, thank you.
And I appreciate all of that. That's all very good.
Does anyone else got any questions for him?
I mean, I will say that 362 lots, we're trying to plan a development. And when you get into the phase of designing streets and utilities, it's important to know what our goal is and to have a plan for the entire development. So we've presented you with 362 lots and a request for a variance. As a designer, I need to know, am I doing 362 50-foot wide lots or 60-foot wide lots? It makes a big difference in terms of where the streets are going to be and so forth. So that's why you're getting hit with all of these lots. I mean, it might be unusual to see so many lots in a proposal, but we need to know, we need assurance that the variance can be approved for the entire development.
I think it's important to point out too that the allowable, if I'm correct here, is 953. Is that right?
That is correct.
So the total allowable in this 207 acres is 953 lots.
So I was gonna, I don't know who said this. I know it's a big developer. It's Ball Homes who brought this up. This was up in Scott County. And they said, I'm not asking to persuade anybody in any direction, but this developer made the point that we need to, and I'm not saying us, I'm just speaking what he said, that we need to allow these developers to maximize their density, because if we don't, they're gonna run right down the street by another farm. So if I limit him to 200, and he's stone set on building this 500, he's gonna go buy the farm next to it, put another 300, and now I got a bigger road problem. I'm backing everything up down the line, if that makes sense what I'm trying to say. So to what you're saying, so if we approved his variance, he's maximizing his area to get in what he's asking without having to make the area bigger or go down the street and buy more land and put up more homes there, if that makes sense.
I mean, it's just a smart growth and planning principle to cluster housing where you have infrastructure to try and preserve open space. And in this case, we have a lot of large lots that are in the county around us, people that are there on a large lot already, a 5-acre lot. You know, they've already destroyed that agricultural property by building a house in the middle of a 5-acre lot. And so we're asking to do it the right way. And I didn't want to get into the whole traffic issue, but I mean, it's not a zone change. We have access to a collector street, which is Hampton Way and Congleton Lane. But in the past, we've been prepared for those arguments, and a traffic study was done earlier when we were considering doing multifamily housing, and had the number was much bigger in terms of the number of units whenever we did the traffic study. The traffic study was done assuming 455 residential units, and we're proposing 362. But in preparing that traffic study, I did not prepare the traffic study. I reviewed it. Vision Engineering prepared the traffic study. It was done in 2024, and they provided an update in 2025.
How long would it take you to build this whole thing out? All the phases?
Well, that's typically driven by the housing market and how quickly they can sell.
But
I mean,
ordinary,
honestly, it could be 30 years before it gets
And-
built out or more.
Your traffic study did not include the other developments that you all are already doing on Hampton Way.
It did.
I mean, not in 2024 because they weren't approved. I mean, this is,
The,
oh, well, yeah, they would have been, I guess.
it
I
didn't
don't
include
know.
the Ramsey project, and didn't include
All-
the one out in Tate's Creek. A lot of those projects it doesn't even touch, so.
the traffic study, I don't, maybe, have you seen it?
Yep,
Okay.
they came,
You have seen it.
they did a cover review with us.
It is,
So,
it encompasses the entire west side and the proposed development and 2% growth in the community for the next, until 2040. So it is a very thorough look at the entire west side. And I haven't even told you what the findings are, but, I mean, for the most part, it focuses on a level of service at the main intersections, Barnes Mill and Tate's Creek Road, all of those ones that everyone's seeing congestion. And the amount of housing proposed here doesn't change the level of service in those areas. Now, I'm not saying these people here that will live here won't go there. I'm just saying that it's not enough of an impact to change the level of service, according to this traffic study.
I don't know how they do a traffic study. I don't know if it includes, what I'm saying is, they did a traffic study, but it doesn't include all the new development that's been recently approved in the last, 2 years? On Hampton Way alone.
I was just showing some,
It did?
so I can just,
Are these
I can give
R1C
you
lots?
I don't have the names of the subdivisions, but
Oh.
it included traffic generation from a 420-acre commercial and residential neighborhood on the corner of 876 and Garden Lane.
I believe it is.
That's the
I
biggest
could be wrong.
block of development that I can see, and I think that's future development.
Well, these are R1B, correct?
Yes,
Lots,
it's R1B.
I thought.
It is R1B.
I think too, the biggest thing,
I can share this map with you if it helps to ease your concerns, but I think that without reviewing the entire traffic study, you really don't.
No.
need anything out of it.
Okay.
we all know how the state and big government goes anyway. They ain't gonna do nothing until we do something. And it's already messed up. So it's gonna get worse before it gets better. That's just the way it is. If we don't make the changes to where it doesn't get the state's attention, they're not gonna do anything. They can pre-plan with engineering plans, but then those plans can sit on somebody's desk for 10 years. Because if we don't move, they're gonna say, well, your level of service is good now. And then in 10 years, they can break out their engineering plan if we decide to do something in 10 years. So I
To
think
Mike's
it's-
point, it's hard to go to the state and get money funded for new roads when the development's not there.
Yeah.
So, and it's even harder to go to a farmer that has undeveloped property and say, we're gonna encroach on your property to widen roads or put a road across your property for future development. So, to Mike's point, when the development starts happening, that's when you gotta start lobbying the state for the funding, and we have done that. It's unfortunate we're behind the curve all the time, but that's the only thing that gets them moving on funding those projects.
Yeah,
And these are, I mean, it's millions of dollars that they're gonna spend improving the on and off ramps at the interstate. I mean, it's not something that's gonna happen in 2 years. It can't. I mean, there are short-term plans to fix certain areas and certain intersections. But, and I think he's already explained to you that, you know, the state has been allocated money to acquire right-of-ways where they need to widen right-of-ways and do their studies and prepare plans. But there are millions of dollars that are going into improvement in this area to help condition.
once again, and it is a big concern on the traffic, but we're here on the preliminary plot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're here for on that. It would be no difference than try to go back and hash out the zone change and all, but we are here for the preliminary plot, what we're discussing here tonight. The roads are, you know, that's not in question tonight, although it is a big issue, but that's not what is in question tonight.
But there's
Um,
also,
I
is
do.
there also the subset also having to have, also pass the variance at the same time,
Yeah.
correct? So it'd be basically two different motions, or how would we handle that?
Kevin, I
You-
got one for you, actually, a question.
Go ahead.
Didn't we talk about extending out all the plat lines so it goes all the way to the end, where he has divided it up and kept the open space? Is that something that we're not going to consider in this one?
That ordinance change had not taken place.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Would
with
that affect
that-
this vote?
With that thought, it would not take place here.
Okay. Thank you.
So each of the, even the preserve areas and each of the open spaces has public road frontage, so that means of access. I don't know if that was your concern.
No, it wasn't that. It was maintenance of the property is more or less, because we've voted on a way to extend it so we don't have HOAs controlling that, the maintenance of it, just in case they do fail. So that way it doesn't get out of control. That's the reason why. So we,
Yeah, the problem we've run into is HOAs don't get formed, and then you've got this green space in common areas that doesn't get maintained, and then it falls back on the city to maintain it, or back on the developer to maintain it, and we've run into a lot of that in our community. So we like to see these HOAs formed and understand what they do have to maintain in common space, that's for sure.
I
And
mean,
the-
in this scenario, I feel like the development,
Yeah.
Plum Tree
Yeah.
Communities is
No, I know.
fully aware of the establishment, we need to establish a HOA to maintain these open spaces.
This particular design, and Kendall, jump in here if I'm wrong, this particular design has introduced something that, to my knowledge, this group hasn't seen. It is a woodland preserve. That is a brand-new term. That is different than green space or recreation space. The woodland preserve stays intact. It's not something you mow. It's a natural area. Think of Natural Park, Daniel Boone National Forest. This area just stays intact as what it is. You have recreation areas and green space areas, common areas throughout this that is meant for recreation. That is what essentially the HOA would be required to maintain. There wouldn't be anything to maintain, so to speak, in a woodland preserve. It stays in its natural state.
That's correct. Thank you.
Some more questions here?
Does this change the size of the homes that you all plan to build if we go along with this variance? I mean, not sure, 62, going from 60, that's 8 feet difference per lot. Right,
I'm not sure. I would
You wouldn't
assume
know
that
that.
if the lot was bigger, they would build a bigger home,
yeah.
but I'm not, I seen a lot of the floor plans, and they are putting modest size homes on 50-foot wide lots, so. Does anyone want to speak to the size home? Sorry, they tell me the criteria and I make the lot, so.
Close to similar.
I appreciate the question. It's a good question. We've come into this with the design of we're not doing estate lots. So we're not targeting the biggest big home. But to Kendall's point, yes, like kind of a moderate sized home down, we're targeting more of an attainable size housing. Single level living, we're gonna have areas in here that's gonna be age targeted for like a retirement or an age targeted community that wants a smaller single level home, as well as first time home buyers and that kind of stuff. So we're trying to, along with what he said about bringing it in, we're trying to address a price point that's needed and a type of housing that's needed on the smaller, more modest sized homes.
Isn't that what's going into those other 2 areas that you all have purchased?
The other ones so far, they'll be duplex and multifamily. So these are all single family detached. So it's a completely
A
different
little different,
product.
okay.
And some of them will have, whether they're all single level living or they're 2 stories, some with basements. Some of these offer a good walkout basement option because of the elevation behind them. So yes, that is the intent of a more modest home, but varying sizes, all single family detached. So
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Kevin, you got anything?
Maybe add to that, Ms. Perkins, the lot, if you deem it appropriate to grant the variance here tonight, then I can tell you by looking at the design, you know, we need 9,500 square feet for an R1B lot. All of these lots at a minimum will meet that, and a great deal of them are far beyond the 9,500 square feet. You can just scan through this thing and in any of these phases or stages. These lots are up around 10,000, 12,000. Some are pushing 20,000 and above. So you're going to have a very nice lot in association with any type of recommendation you give here tonight. I would only recommend that you would consider staff approval if you head that direction.
Thanks.
Yeah, in large part, every lot, almost, I mean, joke, not every lot, but the majority of the lots are gonna have a backyard that joins the wooded area. Who wouldn't want that? I mean, and many of the lots, because we did maintain even though some are as narrow as 50 feet wide, many of the lots are as much as 200, 300 feet deep. So there's a lot of space back there if they choose to use it.
Okay. Anything else? Is that it? Sir,
Yes, sir.
is that,
That's all.
okay,
I'll be glad to answer any other questions if they come up.
okay. More questions? We get a motion?
I propose a motion that we,
Wait just a minute. Did you have something, Scott? You want to ask the question on there? And just, and again, we're just staying with the preliminary plot tonight, nothing else. And one person's representing tonight.
Appreciate that. Can you all hear me at all? Is this thing on at all? Would we be able to get that on so everybody can hear okay?
I think it's on, you'll just have to speak up,
Just,
Scott.
yeah,
Check.
yeah.
It's on. The problem is the speaker's behind the screen, you'll just have to speak up.
All right. I'll do my best. Thank you. All right. Well, certainly we appreciate the opportunity to speak. I appreciate your all's time and the opportunity to share some things. Again, I'm primarily representing the Old Town Branch Estates neighborhood, who are the neighborhood that are adjacent to this proposed preliminary plat and overall property. And I'll be as concise as possible, stick just to the facts here. And we're going to, in doing so, we're going to ask you all to take 2 actions that we believe are warranted and we believe are based on the facts. Just as I want to hit a couple of quick points, partly because something I shared with you before has been eclipsed by information presented by the mayor, so I wanted to update you because it speaks to how much density we do or don't want and why that's important or not. So one is, last time I was before you, I shared that there were ballpark 1,875 housing units either underway or approved in the sense they're in the pipeline, okay? Since then, the mayor announced in March that there are now 2,867, that's 1,000 more housing units that are now in the pipeline. So as we think about, you can go back and watch the thing. Rob, do you remember that number? He presented it in 3 phases, but that was, he said single-family homes, duplexes, or multifamily.
Yeah, single-family.
And
duplexes
duplexes.
and, apartments.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So at any rate, it's dramatically more than even the last time I was here. So one of the things as we consider what is the current need and which way is Richmond going as far as how much we'll need, important question. We just found out in stats presented to the, or stats that are in our comprehensive plan from the last time it was done, that we had 5.8% growth of an average over the previous 5 years. And that's up till the point of the previous comprehensive plan. Since that time, that growth rate has dropped from 5.8%, and that's not per year, that's over the 5-year period, that's an average. It has dropped from 5.8% to 2.6%. So that means our growth rate has dropped 50% in the last 5 years. Even more important, that population that was used to compute that was through 2023, which is before we started the big drawdown from the chemical D-mill program, which comprises 1,600 jobs that are now flowing away right now. Now, I know obviously we're hoping to replace those and plan on those, but we just need to keep those big picture stats in mind as far as, you know, we want to have enough housing, but what happens when you have way too much housing and not only the traffic, home values, things like that. And in addition, one other development, and then I'll get right to our key point, is that we already shared, and we won't go back over that because as the chair said, we want to focus on today's plat. But despite all the things that we already shared about traffic and the things that will drive that traffic, specific to this preliminary plat request, we have since learned that Model School is going to move from the corner of EKU campus out Lancaster, which will be toward the underground tunnel that provides one of the egress points for this neighborhood. So that means that it is quite likely that a number of parents and school buses or whoever that are coming to get those kids in and out of the school very well may now be using Congleton and Hampton Way and that single lane tunnel, all of which will exacerbate the growing traffic problems that are already there and will get much worse the more units that we approve. Yes.
No.
Okay.
They don't have
means
school
you have,
buses.
thank you very much. So it means you'll have even more cars because there are not combined students on a school bus, which is a little more efficient. So, but on to our key points, and we have 2. First, and Rob, I wanted to ask you one question to make sure I didn't misrepresent this. When we were talking about redoing, fixing the deficiency for developer abandonment and how we handle that, am I correct that you said something along the lines of we're going to kind of, since we're in the middle of the comprehensive plan, that we probably as part of that, or at least until we get a new director in, we'll be looking at that and coming up with some solution that both our new director will support and possibly through the comprehensive plan?
It'll
Is
be
that
part of the comprehensive plan.
There you go.
Yeah, so once we complete it, we'll fold that into it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right. And the reason that's important is, I'll get to you in just a second. So our first point in the action we're asking you to take, and I was a little confused because I believe this gentleman said that they're going to go to 50-foot wide lots as a variance. On the preliminary plat thing that I saw and on their website, it said 52 feet, so that's another 2 feet. Are you sure it's 50 feet, not 52? 50, is that right? 50. Okay.
I will say most of the lots are 50 feet wide. You see on this preliminary
Okay.
plat, we'd like to have approval for 50 feet wide.
Okay, but you're asking for 50 here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So based on that, here's what we'd like to share. A variance, as you know, and you all have done this a lot, so you know, a variance is governed by KRS 100.243. And that statute dictates, here is what must be in place for you to grant a variance. Now, certainly we look at density, and the more houses we allow in, yeah, that does get more dense. But we still have to follow state statute. And here's what it says, and I gave you all a copy of this on the handout. Point A is, it does not harm public health, safety, or welfare, okay? And I think maybe we can make a point that the more houses we put into a certain area and the more traffic, that may in fact affect safety and welfare. Number two, it doesn't alter the character of the surrounding area. I think the more tightly you pack houses in together, and we've all seen different developments, but ones that have lots of space between them, like Old Town Estates, compared to ones that are packed more tightly together. And that's exactly what they're asking for. They're asking you to set aside the 60-foot lot width and drop that by 10 feet. And the ultimate result of that will be we're going to pack those houses more tightly together. That certainly affects the character, and it probably affects how attractive that is for people who go by the neighborhood and people who might be thinking about buying those homes. So we think that's questionable. C is it doesn't cause a public hazard or nuisance. Certainly, the more closely you pack houses, it affects fire safety. It affects the ability to get in and out of there if you need to. And I'm sure they could make an argument on the other side. But the final point is that it's not based on the developer's desire to increase density. And in fact, while you can say over the whole 200 acres, we're only giving this density, they are, in fact, if you take 10 feet away from every lot, you are going to get more houses in the same space. It's just math. And it's also just our ordinance. And the ordinance says 60 feet. And the KRS statute says that if you can't violate any of these 4 items. And we think we've made a case that more than one of these are at least questionable. And this is a factor that I don't know, but I'm assuming they have laid this out in the way that is most cost efficient, because that would be the smart thing to do. No problem with that. But if it costs them more to spread it out and make it 60 feet, that violates number D, because they're not allowed to do something that will benefit them financially. You understand what I'm saying? So in other words, if you do the math on this, it's 362 homes right here is what we've got before us. Had they done 60 feet, and we ballpark this because there's no way to know for sure, but if you just take the linear roadway length in the whole neighborhood and you just divide it by the number of 50 feet sections or 60 feet sections, that means they are getting to build about four dozen additional homes. Selling 48 additional homes mean there is a substantial financial benefit for them to squeeze in lots that are 50 feet instead of 60 feet. And on its face, that violates point D without question. Based on that, the developer's request stems from an effort to increase the lot numbers despite the terrain constraints, which were known from the very beginning when they bought the land. And this variance would increase density, traffic, and again, as we said, potentially harm the character and safety, or at least affect it. And therefore, we believe the commission is fully justified in denying that variance request. And that's our first point of action we'd like to request. Number 2, we believe that it makes good sense to delay this preliminary plat request because of the pending detention basin policy, which I discussed with the city manager. Sorry for calling you Rob in an official meeting. Here's what we'd like to share about that. You're familiar probably with our ordinance, which is 502.13 and 14, and KRS statute 100.281, that the planning commission must ensure a plat conforms to current and applicable regulations. And KRS 100.281 allows the commission to require conditions or defer action until compliance is confirmed, or, here's the big one, additional information is provided. We have already shown, and I've already been before you all multiple times and I'm not going to go back to that as the chair is directed.
No, please don't.
Yeah, I won't. However, I think it's fair to say that we have all agreed that we have a deficiency in our ordinance and in our development ordinance that affects detention basins. And to be fair to them, as well as to be fair to us, it will be hard for them to correctly draw those lots if they don't know what our policy is going to be on the detention basins.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
Kevin, on those detention bases, that would come through you all's office, right? As far as the water runoff and all the detention bases?
Detention basin hydrology would occur during the construction document process. As long as we have general location as to where above or below ground detention, whatever may be introduced, will be at, we can expect that that function will occur in that area. Design and hydrology will then come from a computation of street runoff, sidewalks, houses, downspouts, recreation areas, whatever. Those calculations would then be, will be what is determining the size of that detention area to release a controlled rate as it was before development.
Yeah, I just want to say all that would come through before anything else is done. They would have to see all that before.
Exactly.
Before that was done.
And to be clear, we're not arguing in any way with the science or the good work that Kevin does or the engineers that they hire to make sure that they have proper flood control. What we are addressing, however, is, as you know, you have heard several options for what way the city might go in how they address developer responsibility, ongoing responsibility, how the handoff occurs, and who's going to be responsible for that, how much it'll cost, what are the legal implications of all that. The first example that you heard was that the HOAs are going to be created for every development and be responsible. But I think you all wisely thought about it, and as you considered, you said, well, not everybody wants to live in an HOA development. So you said, let's sharpen the pencil and go back to work. I thought that was exactly the right thing to do. The next proposal you heard was, let's make all the detention areas part of the homeowner lots. So now the homeowners will be totally responsible for the maintenance, for the liability, and for the ongoing care of the detention areas.
Yeah, but Scott, what I'm saying is, for that to be developed, that would have to come through him. I mean, I'm not talking about HOA. I'm talking about when they start moving dirt and get everything calculated. That's where it comes in at. Now, HOA and that's completely different from
Right.
what we're talking about right here on this.
Under current regulations, the detention areas must be separate from the residential lots. We haven't reached the point to where we have a shared detention area shared by individual property owners. That don't exist currently. And it would not apply to this development. This development would have to have its own independent detention system, not associated with any of the private lots.
However, so here's a question. So what happens,
Yeah,
Yeah, this one, I mean, I thought you was gonna have questions, just what he was talking about on the preliminary part
Okay.
of it, because we've been hashing over this, for some times. It well, he's the only one that's gonna be able to speak because, well, when he came to me on this meeting tonight, we said we'd have one representative, and that's what he spoke of, that he was speaking for the group or whoever he was on here tonight. Ma'am, I'm sorry. Ma'am, this, ma'am, I'm sorry. This is only about the preliminary hearing tonight. We're not talking about traffic or anything else. We just talked about this preliminary, what he has brought before us tonight. Scott had came and wanted to discuss whatever and ask questions on what he came up with. And that's the only thing that we're discussing here tonight on this.
Okay, so I'll try to wrap it up so we can proceed. But again, our key point isn't the science of it. Our point is, I think we apparently are in agreement that there's a deficiency, and I won't go into those, but we identified 3 separate deficiencies, which means we have decided we are going to change how we're doing this.
Yeah.
So my question is, I know you're shaking your head at me, but so if we approve this today without having solved that, and let's say they start working on phase 1, we pass our new guidelines and ordinance on how we deal with detention areas, what happens to phase 2 and 3 and 4? Do they now have this development that will be treated differently based on what phase it is? How does that work?
Right now, the only thing we can go on is what we got now.
That's right.
That's the only thing we can go on is what we
You're
got right now.
speculating about what might happen,
Yeah,
and that
we can
hasn't
only go on
happened, so
what
you
we
can't
got
go
right
there.
now to do with, because we don't know when it's gonna come
Don't
along.
we think that's an important question to know? Do we
It's-
want to create a development that the development itself has different rules that apply to it based on when each phase came up?
We don't
I'm
know
just
that.
asking the question how that works.
Yes, we don't
Nobody
know that.
knows whether those are ever going to go through. The HMO and all that, the homeowners association, we don't know if that's ever going to get passed. We don't know if they're going to extend the lots. What you're talking about is future, and it may go through, it may not go through, et cetera. So we've got to sit here and decide what, if this plat is reasonable,
Yeah.
the way it's written, for us to vote on and pursue. Okay, that's the only thing we consider. We can't consider the future. We don't know that. It may never get passed.
Well, my understanding is this is the Planning and Zoning Committee, and I think looking at the future is exactly one of our key responsibilities. So.
Well, I agree with looking at the future for development, but not on these things. You're confusing it.
This isn't an open discussion on what ordinances might be. This is a discussion on this development and this plat.
Okay. Thank you. So to wrap up, and I'll do that, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Based on what we've shared, we think the prudent thing to do, which is allowed under KRS, as I've already shown, is to delay the progress on this until we nail down fixing the deficiencies, which we've already demonstrated on multiple meetings, so that they can have a clear idea of how to proceed, and so that we also don't, in a sense, grandfather this in under a substandard.
Scott, we need to move on. You're on
Yeah.
repeat here.
Yeah.
I just said I'm
He-
wrapping
Okay, we
up.
need to
He's
move on.
finishing up on
Yeah,
that.
you repeat yourself, and we get the point.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
If you got any more, Kevin, on this?
I do not unless commissioners have any questions pertaining to the plat.
If no other commissioners have any questions on that, like a motion, please.
I propose a motion that we'll pass this preliminary plat with the request to reduce the lot size to 50 feet.
I'll second.
With staff approval. Excuse me. Thank you, Kevin, for pointing that out.
I'm sorry. Commissioner DeGrant,
Yes.
Commissioner Francis.
Yes.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
No.
Commissioner Miles,
Yes.
Commissioner Estelle.
Yes. Thank you all. Next on the agenda is zoning determination for wedding venue. Is a representative here for this?
I don't know if we have a representative here or not. If they're not here, we'll need to move on.
Okay. Next on the agenda is zone determination for overnight shelters. I know we was gonna do some research on that.
We looked at some other cities our size, and the majority of them make it a conditional use. Lexington makes it a conditional use for daytime only unless it's a church. And then they kind of are hands-off with religious organizations having overnight shelters. Louisville allows it, conditional use in the zones, but they have some pretty stringent guidelines, which include fire marshal inspection, building inspection, and open to the public to come in and inspect the facilities. So I think what Kevin and I would like to do is just add it as a conditional use to go to the Board of Adjustments in our different zoning classifications. So if somebody comes in and wants to do an overnight shelter, they have to go to the Board of Adjustments to get that approval.
In what zones?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's what we would need to discuss and determine so that we can make a change in our use charts.
I personally don't think they should be in any of the R zones.
Right.
I really don't.
Before-
I think having homeless go in and out of the residential areas, you're going to have people that have some mental issues, and you're going to have some violence too sometimes.
There'll be unique situations where you'll have a residential zone, but perhaps a church resides there, or some type of existing structure that is used in a commercial fashion that is in a residential zone, just being of its age.
Could it be worded that way then?
Those are things we might need to consider. There'll be technicalities, but these places are what folks are going to be looking for. And if it is determined not to be allowable use within a residential zone, however, it's sort of a commercial type building, we might get into the weeds a little bit. So we would need to determine really with a very sharp pencil where we would like to have these listed as conditional.
See, the problem with the R3 is too, as you know, so a lot of houses around here are not R1, but they're R3. So if you say it's allowed in R3,
Right.
then they can do it. So that's a little problem too. So you need to make sure that it's not in the R areas. That's just not going to work.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the question, because I know when the homeless shelter, when they first got started, they used some of the churches, because they would even, the city
that's how it
rented
all
it out to
started
them,
was-
they even took them to the.
What was it called,
place.
Room in the Inn? Room
Yeah.
at the Inn? That's how it all
Churches
started.
take,
That's how
they
it
take
started.
turns a lot of times.
And I'm just wondering, because I think church over here on, Third and Mobley and places like
Yeah.
that, and it's in a residential, but they use that for them to stay in, for overnight shelters. Then in the day, they had to leave, but they could come back, but some of them was in the residential. Some of your churches are.
So I guess the question is, where do we put that conditional use and what zoning classification?
Can we just, when they request an area, then approve or disapprove of, they find a spot where they think it might work and they come to us and we say,
If you put the conditional use across all zoning classifications, then it would always have to go to the Board of Adjustments for approval.
And
Kind of
then,
what we did with some other things, yeah.
what input do we have with them,
With who?
with the Board of Adjustment?
They can do whatever they want.
That's what I mean. Is there some negotiation that you can make with them? So, like Dr. Miller said, if
They're
you say
independent
R3's
board.
open, it's open, but if you put conditional use in
They're an
it,
independent
and then
board.
they go, but there's a church in the middle of the R3, is there some sort of agreement that can be made with them for the understanding that's for the church, and these are the boundaries?
Yeah, because a lot of
with respect to
churches
residential?
volunteered to,
Lexington, I think that's how Lexington approached it, really, with the religious institutions are hands-off. So if it's a church of any sort that's providing housing, they just kind of step away from it.
They're trying to separate the religious from the secular, so.
Yeah, that's right.
So basically, if it's a church, I don't have as much problem, but they're still responsible
Yeah.
for all the things, so there had to be guidelines.
That's what I'm getting at.
You can't have people that
Yeah,
have
we
mental
may
illnesses
have to
walking the
look
street
at-
out to the
Yeah,
church.
that's a good point.
We may have to actually look at the use of the structure as it's existing and maybe make some determination there, but now that would only be one apple on the tree. I wouldn't say that would govern any decision, but there's going to be so many unique situations. You're going to look at this and think, well, we can do that and do this. I guarantee you in 1 month's time, we'll find the bad apple, and it's going to have to go to Board of Adjustments. It'll be a tough decision. But perhaps maybe we sleep on this, maybe entertain a work session and really hash this out and think about it. But
Because we did pass an ordinance that requires these transitional housings, overnight housings, to have state certification. But that includes some treatment of some sort with that, so I'm all for putting it on the back burner and doing some more research if you all
I know.
want to do that.
Well, I helped when they first started that room in the end. They done a background check of everyone that came through that door.
Yeah.
And if they even had a traffic violation, they would talk to them, but let them stay. But they done a background check on, before they would let them go to a facility where they was going to. They done a background check on. The officer would come down if he had a problem with it, just to see what it was. But they did they was pretty strict. They had a background check on all of them when they come through.
Yeah, but this winds up into a problem, because then the police going to get in on it, and they have some violent individual there that has psychiatric problem. What do you want to do with those individuals? Do we put them in the hospital over here, because we do have a ward now, or what do we do? Where do we send them? And that's going to be a problem for
Yeah,
them.
I agree.
Well, they remove them. They will remove them, and then.
But just moving them's not
Well,
going to do it.
even at that, they cannot come back. I think they might give them 3 times or something like that, but then they did, but they wasn't allowed, they had a list, and they weren't allowed to come back for the facility. If they showed up, they would say, hey, your name's on this list where,
Yeah.
you can't come back. Now, that's what the shelter done themselves. And the police, they would call it in, and they would call them right back and tell them, said, hey, this person's okay. If not, he's got a warrant or something like that on him. And they would come down and get them like that. But what I'm saying, it's a lot of churches and a lot of places like that volunteer.
I think the church thing's a good, I mean,
Not
it
saying
gets
that all
cold,
the
no,
church
no,
that they
I
would do
know.
it, but
It gets cold in the wintertime.
Yeah.
I work out in that stuff, so I can't, at nighttime. So a church that does want to help the homeless community, right, it's a good idea. I'd support that 100%. Is there any way that they can go before the Board of Adjustments, come up with an agreement, and almost got like a strike system? If this incident happens, and I don't know if you can grade incidents, right, from severe to mild, I don't know how that would work. Can you put, if a church is in these R zones, is there rules that we can come up with that if there's incidents that happen, that church is no longer allowed to come back and request a conditional use in the future? Would that satisfy concerns for residential? Because then you're putting them on the hook for maintaining,
If you own one of those
security.
houses and there's an incident that comes up,
I mean, I agree. When it happens,
I
it
mean,
happens.
I don't think you're going to be very pleased with that, and especially if there's a mental illness, et cetera. I mean, I've seen people talking themselves, so this gets printing. I've seen people out here at the Methodist Church yelling and screaming, and they had to come out, call the police. So it's not just one isolated kind of thing. So when you get all these people together, even though it would be great in the churches, I don't have any trouble with it, you're going to have somebody available psychiatrically, patient-wise, inpatient-wise, and you're going to have to train the officers on how to handle this, because they're not used to that either, I'm sure.
Well, Rob,
And if they get violent,
can she say something?
Yeah,
You want to say? She's a shelter. You can come over here.
Yeah, come on up, Monica.
Yeah, you can come.
Absolutely.
Because I know when
Absolutely.
they had that, they did have some social workers there at the shelters for them.
it would help.
Yeah, they had social, but she would know more.
Okay, so maybe it'll be easier if
What's
y'all
your
just
name?
ask the questions.
What's your name?
My name is Monica Barnes.
Yeah.
So I am the main founder of Madison County Haven of Hope. So to maybe ease the worries right now, what we are looking for is a shelter, one spot, not multiple spots in multiple neighborhoods, different spots throughout the community. We are looking for one facility right now. So our biggest concern that we have is we need a building large enough. You are right, the mental illness is a part that we deal with every day. I'm not new to this. The other person with us is Jamie Jordan. He is one of the founders that did Room in the Inn. I've worked with Jamie for 7 years with that. We also have Jesse Shepard, who is actively working with this community also. We are constantly looking at what kind of rules do we need, what kind of standards do we need. For Madison Home, Jamie Jordan ran Madison Home. I ran Madison Home. Jesse helped me run Madison Home this previous winter. And it was a 3-strike system. That's how it was with Room at the Inn. That's how it was with Madison Home. The Haven of Hope Board has not really ironed out all of our regulations yet. It may be 3 strikes, it may not. Sometimes the offense is big enough that it's all 3 strikes in one. Right now, Haven of Hope, with the collaboration of the Church of Christ, is sheltering a few individuals. We screen those people, just like Room in the Inn did, just like Madison Home did. So we work very closely with Richmond Police. We work with the Sheriff's Department. Codes Enforcement knows where our people are. The Fire Marshal has been to our home to look and make sure that it's safe. So we are trying to be very proactive in this whole planning process instead of reactive. So what questions do you all have that I can answer?
Oh, there's a ton, but can we do, I wonder if we could invite them to one of our planning sessions?
Work sessions, yeah,
And
absolutely.
just do that, and then we can work through and
Absolutely.
give you some more, I mean, I think industrial areas would be good. I don't know how you get the people there, because, you don't want them in a concentrated area. But I think a planning session would be nice, and if we could have your all's names, your names and numbers,
Yes.
and then we could
I think that would give us some time to do some further research on guidelines like they have in Louisville. I think Louisville has a pretty good model of, requirements that have to be met to have this kind of overnight housing. To Dr. Miller's point, you've got to have some people there 24/7, I would assume, to oversee this kind of facility, so, yeah.
Yes, there will be 24-hour a day care and oversight. It won't be just a shelter where people are on their own and not being supervised. Like you all talked about, the churches did Room in the Inn before, which was excellent, because really we need lots of churches, lots of community partners to make this be successful anyway. But when you had different churches, the standards kind of change from spot to spot. And part of that standard is based on where the location of the building is. Is it close to downtown where they can just walk out and there are things close? Is it a little further out of town where they can't walk out the building and have access to other things? So the goal of having one shelter that's large enough to accommodate really the population that we have in Madison County, it's important so that everything is consistent. The guidelines are the same, they're in one spot, and everybody knows. Because of so much mental illness and drug use in our county, the other thing that is so important are the relationships that are built. Jesse has walked through woods where the homeless camps are. We have homeless people that come to us and say, hey, do you know there's people over here? And sometimes we do know, and sometimes we don't. Right now, we are already starting to kind of get to know these people so that they trust us and know that we care. Because when they know that they are cared about, they're more willing to get the help that they need through Enrich and the One Stop. They're willing to trust that we are in their corner. We're not judging them, and there's support and services for them. In the past month, probably 5 different homeless people in our community have gotten into rehab facilities outside of Madison County. Not in county, we have put them other places. because some other places are a little better suited for some of these people. So building relationships and having consistent workers and consistent people that care, that they see regularly, that's going to benefit our community in the end. So we would love to sit down and meet.
Yeah. I think it'd be good if we just,
Monica, we'll invite you to the next work session we have. That'd be awesome.
That'd be
Thank you.
perfect.
If
Thank
they
you all.
need medication or they are on medication, what do you do?
Some of them are medicated, some of them are not. With our small population that we have right now, we just kind of have to look at what the medications are. Again, working with Richmond Police, we had someone in our home that took a controlled substance. And I said, I don't really feel comfortable leaving a controlled substance there all the time. I'm a school teacher by trade, so I have medication training, but I am not a nurse. But because I have medication training through the school system, I took that medicine, and I would go every day when it was time for medicine. But that was consistency. Because we need to be able to have people in the facility that have medications that need administered. There are nurses in our community that go to different churches that are willing to volunteer to help when we have a larger shelter. Right now, I'm able to manage that on my own. But yeah, medications are definitely a thing that we have to look at. And the guidelines also are very strict on how you deal with people's medications in a facility like that. Louisville does have a really good system, and you can go online and look at their guidelines. We are going to Volunteers of America. They have an entire homeless solution in Louisville. Volunteers of America does. We are going there the first week of August to tour their facility and kind of talk about their guidelines. So again, we are just trying to be very proactive in all of this.
okay. Thank you.
So we can want to plan this after you've had your tour of the Louisville facilities?
That's a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we have also toured some facilities even in other states.
Okay.
We toured a facility in Florida several months ago that has an on-site infirmary. They have staffed nursing 24 hours a day. If people need specific medical care, there's specific rooms for them. Because also sometimes the homeless in our community aren't just mentally ill or not just addicted to drugs. Some of them have cancer. We have a homeless lady in Madison County right now that is very ill with cancer. We were asked to house her last week. She chose not to come. But there are other homeless facilities where there is cared nursing, and some people even live in these facilities, the homeless shelter option through hospice to the end. So truly, we want a solution for Madison County that can start with emergency sheltering and then take them through to transitional living, independent living, and work with these people, building these relationships to get them out of the circumstance they're in. Everybody cannot get out of the circumstance they're in. You know, there are people downtown every day that you all see. I see them too. And I'll bring them food, or I'll bring them a blanket. Do you need deodorant today? Do you need a toothbrush? But building these relationships and continuing to show up and have an entire community of care is important for these people. To see there are people that care, and I can do better.
Okay.
That's our goal.
Great.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the revised preliminary plat for Farms of Barnes Mill. Give you the hand.
My name's Hunter Pergram, and I work with Ramsey Development Group at the Farms at Barnes Mill. We brought forth updated preliminary plat to kind of show you all what all is going on and kind of some of the changes that we have made throughout the process. We've got a 14-acre commercial piece right there, the box store, that is we're hoping to close by the end of the year. And due to their site, we had to move the Farms Boulevard down a little bit to let their site fit on the development. And then on top of that, we have reduced the density down to help with the contours of the land. We originally had 1,153 units, and we've cut it down to 1,012. So if you all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Does anyone have any questions?
A little concerned about the putting apartments next to residential R1.
We don't see any problem with the apartments next to, because it'll have its own access road. The apartments will have its own entrance versus the residential will have a separate entrance. So we don't really see any problem with the apartments near the R1.
Well, usually we like to split it up so it's R2's next to it, not R1.
Well, this set of apartments, this is a Class A set of apartments. It's gonna be, it's gonna have everything there. It's gonna have a swimming pool, you know, pickleball court, whatever, you know. And if you look at Hamburg, that's how the flow is. They flow the Class A apartments, then they go into the studio, the patio home, then they go into the garden home, then they go into the next phase, you know. So the home size is gonna be anywhere from like, you know, a patio home could be anywhere at 1,250, 1,300 square feet. Garden style could be 1,400, 1,500 square feet. Then you get back in here, then you're gonna be somewhere in the 2,800, 3,800, 4,000 square feet house. You know, bigger lots back to back, you know, smaller lots up in here, smaller lots up in here, apartments in here, two-family right here. That's be your like nice duplex type, patio type, duplex type home right here. And, but no, it's just connectivity, you know, and that's just kind of how it all kind of flows together. So, and then up here, I'm not at liberty to say who this is right now. I'm under a CPAC with these people. But it'll be well received, very well received.
Whereas there's a portion where you have three-story apartments.
I've got 2 and 3 in here, okay? And the reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to just level the land. It takes the contour away from it. It doesn't leave it a very attractive property. When you go in there, you know, to just go in there and start pouring dynamite and leveling the land and stuff like that, I don't want to do that. I want to build on the contours. And kind of the project that I really like, you know, for this one right here in particular, is Latitude on the reservoir in Lexington. It's a beautiful project. If you're ever up there, go look. It's on Squires Road. It's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just got, the way the land rolls and the buildings are set up, you know, you know, it's gonna have walkouts and stuff like that. So it's just gonna really, you're gonna see like the beauty of the farm, the views of the farm, the trees and all that, you know. Because when you're at the old Baker House and you're looking out, and that's where I live. It's just gorgeous. It's just gorgeous, you know. And that's what we want to do with the home sites too. We want all the home sites to have good views as well, you know, even in the starter homes, you know. You don't want to just want to.
And you have open space between those apartments and your homes. It just grass?
Yeah, it'll be grass. Yeah.
Who's maintaining?
There'll be an HOA on me. Yeah.
On you?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I will maintain all this myself, but these will all be HOA.
Okay.
I believe in them. I think they're the only way.
And we've had trouble with some.
But you know, not all HOAs break the bank. It's just how they're formed, and like,
The key is getting them right out of the gate. Not
Yes.
wait
Okay.
until people have moved in and then trying to
Yes.
form it. You want to
Yes.
have it established
Yeah,
in
they
the
have to know
first
what they're
lot
getting
sales.
into.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
I think the key for the board, and correct me if I'm wrong too, is making sure New Holland Boulevard is built for that connectivity to Barnes Mill Road, from Cattleman's Loop to Barnes Mill Road.
And they were kind of scheduled, they were kind of situated back here a little bit, but they wanted to be closer, and which, it's gonna be a better product in the end anyways. It's gonna look good. You're gonna like this. It's gonna be, there'll be, 4 out parcel lots, and then they're gonna have, 12,000 square foot of, connected shopping there. And then they'll have, of course, you know, we'll have a full service store.
And they've asked for a traffic signal on Goggins. We're not sure where we can and can't put that yet. It might be at Cattleman's Loop, or it might be on down at the school. It depends on the transportation cabinet giving us the visibility and stuff where we can put
This is
it.
a national group, and they're excited to be here, and they will do a nice job.
Is it
And of
Costco?
course, the units, we run them in-house. And anything, all the garden style units, the multifamily housing will be ran by me, in my company. And, we've done it for years. So, you know,
Brian, is it Costco? I just want a Costco. I like the big shopping carts, you
it's
know.
not Costco.
Yeah, I
I'm
love
sure you
Costco.
could probably go down the list and figure that, yeah.
No,
But,
I'm giving you a hard
you
time.
know,
Sorry about that.
but it's, you know, it's, oh man, it makes shopping easy, that's all I'll say. Yeah, yeah, I've shopped there many times, it makes shopping easy.
Just for curiosity's sake, the pool and pickleball courts, is that just for the apartments, or is that the whole?
That, we're looking into doing something for the community. We are looking into doing something for community. There's so many people that are like wanting to live on this site. I mean, we get calls and emails all the time, you know, from starter home to, you know, like, you know, your executive type home.
This area.
You know, it's just a good area, and,
Don't forget you got the new park about a mile and a half away
Yeah.
that has pickleball and basketball.
well, there's been a
and tennis.
ton of money invested, they've invested a ton of money at that park. And then you got a ton of money on the middle school as well. I mean, that middle school is beautiful. It's beautiful. Oh, yeah, this is old hat, we're just working on some different things here, yeah. So, but, you know, we get a lot of requests, especially like when you think of the school's like each student, there's 700 students there. So this could feed maybe a third of the development, whether it's from rental or whether it's homeowners. Maybe more than a third. I mean, you know how parents are, they all want to live next to new school. Well, your kids, I mean, look how close that is, proximity of everything, you know, sports, football, Friday night lights, all that.
Is
Any
any-
questions?
Anybody else got any questions? Kevin, you got anything?
I'll just recommend that, you know, again, staff approval, what we'll need to see is the nuts and bolts here. We have an approved phasing plan. I'm not here to dictate phase 3, 4, 5 and right on, but we do need to remember that our first phasing plan in phase 2, we must go to Barnes Mill Road. And that is the intent. I'm not saying it's not here, but Hunter, I provided Hunter and the engineer with our currently approved phasing plan, which dictates that. So again, on staff approval, I would ensure that this preliminary plat gets that shown on it so that it reflects what has already been passed. Now, to go a little further, Dr. Miller, you had a question about proximity to types of developments. I'll have to remind everybody that it is a PUD for mixed use. On top of that, each one of these items would be an independent development plan. And we do require landscape buffers between different uses. So we would have to have some type of buffer between, say, apartments and single family. We would have to look for something like that, but that's all in a development plan stage. I think what we're after here tonight is to ensure that Phase 2 stays intact and we get our road, New Holland Boulevard. Brian and I and Hunter have already talked about that. I've been sitting on this plan for, gosh, Hunter, I don't know how long, a long time, because we've been waiting on this amended preliminary. And now that if we get through this amended preliminary, I then can open the book on New Holland Boulevard and blow the dust off of it. And I'll be looking for 2 intersections on that road to be included on those construction documents and things, and we'll take off. But what will reflect that is that we continue the Phase 2 that encompasses New Holland all the way back over to Barnes Mill Road, and that we stay the course that we approved in the past.
Okay.
And let me give you some assurance. This right here is 3 years. That's how long I've been negotiating with them. They came to South Main. That was the location that they wanted. The school came and saw us too. That's where they wanted to be. That's where they wanted to be, on that side of town. We don't pick that. That's where the people want to be. So, as far as, the 14-acre tract right there, we've been working with them a long time. And it was, things in the economy were kind of shaky there for a while. And now they feel like they're ready to do something, especially like on the business, the shopping side and things like that. So.
Does anyone else got anything? Not, can I get a motion on this, please?
I propose a motion that we approve the preliminary plat with staff approval.
A second.
Commissioner DeGrant,
Yes.
Commissioner Francis,
Yes.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Miles,
Yes.
Commissioner Estelle.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next on the agenda will be the letter of credit release for Great Oaks Phase 2.
Mr. Chairman, I'll speak on this one. We have thus completed Gray Oaks Phase 2. All of the physical necessities have been taken into effect and completed. If you're out there wondering why they're still building, we have 2 remaining lots that are encompassed within a building permit that will ensure the last 2 little sections of sidewalk. I'm very comfortable in recommending to the board that we release the letter of credit.
Okay. Any questions? Motion, please.
I'll make a motion that we release the letter of credit for Gray Oaks Phase 2.
Second.
Commissioner DeGrant,
Yes.
Commissioner Francis,
Yes.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Miles,
Yes.
Commissioner Estelle.
Yes. Number 9, the Chipotle development has been pulled for tonight. Hopefully be back on the next one, but that's all for tonight. The other is any other business.
I just want to let you all know, we had our public meeting for the comprehensive plan last night at the Active Living Center. Had a very good turnout, actually, from about, it was from 5 to 7. People started showing up about 4:45 and had a good flow of people until about 6:30, and then it weeded out. But good information, good input. They were able to put Post-it notes on different sectors that they wanted to see improved or had suggestions about. So I will remind you that we have a joint meeting with you all's board and the commission on August 21st at noon. And the consultant and engineering company will give us a update on the comprehensive plan at that time. So we're making progress on it. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
And you'll let us know when the work session's going to be on the homeless thing? We're going to have a work session on that, or?
Yeah, we'll have to plan a separate work session with you all. I don't know when we normally do those.
They're right around mid-month, but
Mid-month.
we always send out a couple week reminder and an agenda item so that we be thinking.
I don't know, especially if we're gonna have the speaker, come in. I think it'd be wise to wait until after she does attend that meeting in August.
Yeah,
In Louisville, because I think, there again, she knows the
do
walk.
that mid-late August, then after she's made that trip. That'd be great.
Director's report?
I don't have anything else. That's all I've got.
I get a motion for adjournment?
I make a motion we adjourn?
Second.
Commissioner DeGrant,
Yes.
Commissioner Francis, Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Miles,
Yes.
Commissioner Estelle.
Yes.